Okay, guys, just giving you a 30-second warning. We're going to start in about 30 seconds.
I'm going to make sure this is working, and then I'm going to get out of here. Yes, no worries.
Abby or Patrick, where are you?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. They can't hear us. Okay, testing, testing.
Hey.
Hey, to our friends in the back, our friend in the hat, can you hear us? Friends in the back? Hat? Our friend in the hat? Great. All right, we're ready?
And Bill is hard of hearing.
Okay. Again, just want to let everybody know that there are placards, shirts, water all over there. We are going to get started. If everyone could come around.
Okay. I think I'm getting
Okay. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Recess and Wait, our Democracy Can't Rally with state legislators from all across the country. So before we start the programming, we first wanted to convey how saddened we are to hear that Officer Gunther Hashida, who defended our Capitol during the January 6th insurrection, took his own life last week. So we want to take a brief moment of silence to honor all of those who have been irreversibly harmed by the assault that day, which was an attack on the heart of our democracy. So please, a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Okay. And thank you for joining us today for this historic rally, which brings together legislators from all across the country to demand the swift passage of the For the People Act before the August recess. My name is Jana Morgan, and I am the director of the Declaration for American Democracy. And we are a coalition of more than 230 organizations working together to realize the promise of our democracy by passing the For the People Act. Our members work on many issues that are important to Americans, from gun violence prevention to advancing racial justice to getting fair wages to tackling climate change. But we all understand that we will not see progress on the issues that we care most about until we tackle the problems in our democracy to make sure that our government is working for us, we the people. And I am so proud to be joined by my co-host at this rally, Dave Chandrasekaran, Vice President of Advocacy and Campaigns at the Center for American Progress. So after the historic voter turnout in the 2020 election delivered pro-democracy majorities to the House, Senate, and the White House, extremist politicians in states across the country have introduced or passed over 400 anti-voter laws, many of which target black voters and other voters of color. And starting on August 16th, these same extremist politicians will begin drawing congressional maps to pick their voters for the next decade, disenfranchising countless Americans in the process. But the Senate has the power to fix this, but we are running out of time. The For the People Act is the only way to stop the crisis unfolding in state legislatures across the country. The For the People Act would protect the freedom to vote, knock down the anti-voter laws that have been passed nationwide, stop partisan gerrymandering, and get big money out of politics. Our our democracy is facing the biggest threat of our lifetimes. These anti-voter laws are coming on the heels of a violent attempt to overturn a free and fair election on January 6th, and the recent Supreme Court rulings that have shown us that the court is not going to protect our freedom to vote. That is why 150 state legislators from nearly 30 states have gathered here with us today. They are demanding, as the frontline defenders of our democracy, that the Senate pass the For the People Act before the August recess, and we are calling on President Biden to use the full power of the Oval Office to get it done.
Recess can wait!
Recess can wait!
Democracy can!
Recess can wait! Democracy can! Recess can wait!
Democracy can!
Recess can wait!
Democracy can!
Woo! And we cannot let anything, least of all the Jim Crow filibuster, block critical legislation while American democracy is in crisis. Recess can wait, our democracy can't. That's right. Thank you so much, everyone. I am honored now to introduce our first speaker, Senator Amy Klobuchar. Senator Klobuchar is a steadfast champion for democracy, representing the great state of Minnesota. She is the chairwoman of the Rules Committee, where she led the For the People Act through the committee process and onto the Senate floor. Please welcome Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, everyone. What an amazing group. I want to first recognize all of the frontline freedom fighters that are the state legislators that are here today. Thank you. And I specifically want to recognize the two from Minnesota that are here, Liz and Emma, which maybe we have the higher voter turnout over and over again because we have such great election laws. And then our freedom fighters that are here seeking salvation, the Texas legislators. Thank you so much. Thank you for Declaration for American Democracy. So, nearly 8 months ago was when a violent mob went into the citadel of our democracy, this United States Capitol. They did that, and just today, and you should know this, it just happened an hour ago, I stood before the Senate to get the gold medal, and it was just recognized. We've now lost 4 officers that were there that day, 4 officers. And as you remember in the House, a bunch of Republicans voted against it. I want to tell you, it might be what they're hearing from all of you, but no one voted against that amendment. We got it through, and we now have a medal that when kids go to the Smithsonian, one is going to be displayed there, and their parents are going to be able to tell them what happened that day, and who defended us, and who were side on democracy. And what happened 2 weeks later when we took back that platform, despite the broken glass and the makeshift windows and the spray paint still on the columns, we took back that platform. And as I said that day, it was a day where our democracy picked itself up, brushed itself off, and went forward as we always do, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But now, it does not end there, as we have passed on that torch to every state legislature in the nation, as we carry that torch forward. Because what is it good to stop an insurrection if you have people out there stopping from people from voting every single day? I just took the Rules Committee on its first field hearing in over 2 decades. I thought maybe it would be good to get out of that place and go to the places, as we will do as the year unfolds, where people are actually voting. And what happened? What did we hear? The horror of it all. We heard a veteran who had stood in line for 5 hours to vote. When he signed up to serve, there was no waiting line. And when he wants to exercise his right to vote, there shouldn't be a waiting line in the United States of America. And what was the response from the governor of Georgia and those Republicans in the legislature? They said, not only will you continue to wait in line, but now we're going to deny you water from nonpartisan volunteers. You cannot have water. And it gets worse. What else did we find out that they did? Well, they said, we have these runoffs. Most of our states don't have that. They think that's a way that they can manipulate the election. That was the way, by the way, that Senator Warnock became Senator Warnock, and that Senator Ossoff became Senator Ossoff. And guess what? They had 9 weeks to vote. They registered 70,000 people during that time. What did they do? They limited it to 28 days. They said that you can't register to vote during those 28 days. They have passed that into law. And they said, well, yeah, you can vote on weekends before the general election, but when you may be making the ultimate choice in the runoff, they put into law that you can no longer vote on weekends. So when people ask me why we need this, I point to Harris, Texas. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Harris County, they had 1 drop-off box for over 5 million people. I point to those garbage bags and makeshift masks that the people in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin wore when they were standing in line to vote. I point to the North Carolina law passed a few years ago when the court said that they were discriminating with, and these are the words of a conservative judge, surgical precision. And I point to what happened in Georgia. In addition to whatever, I said, you know what else you have to do in Georgia? If you cast a mail-in ballot, you've got to put your birthday on the inside envelope on the outside. Seriously. These things are done to design to make sure people can't vote. And in the words of my friend Senator Reverend Warnock, they did it because some people don't want some people to vote. That, my friends, is why we need national, federal, basic standards for voting in this country. That is why we need the For the People Act. That is why we must get the dark money out of our politics by passing the Disclose Act, which is in the For the People Act. And that is why we have to hold our politicians accountable, not to themselves, not to get perks, and put in basic ethics standards into law. That is what For the People is about. I am so glad it's on the floor. We are working every day. As you know, we are very close to getting a bill done where everyone in the Democratic caucus will sign on. This is what I wake up in the morning thinking about. This is what I go to bed thinking about. We will get this done. So I want to thank you for being on the front line, because voting rights are people's rights. Voting rights are about our democracy, and the people will overcome. We will pass this bill. Thank you, everyone.
Please join me in thanking once again Senator Amy Klobuchar. Good afternoon, everybody. I said good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Dave, with the long last name that's hard to pronounce, and I am with the Center for American Progress, and I have the really exciting honor now to introduce our next speaker. You probably have seen him either on lots of media channels over the past few weeks, or our many Zoom calls, or this morning when he and his colleagues from Texas greeted you and welcomed you here to D.C. So please join me in welcoming to the stage the representative of the 116th from the great state of Texas, Representative Trey Martinez-Fisher.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar. Let me tell you, in my 2 minutes, I want to cover the basics. Senator Klobuchar has been a rock star. I told Majority Leader Greenman from Minnesota that she's been nothing but gracious with us in our 23 days here in our nation's capital. She said she was going to have hearings. She has hearings. She said she's going to work on a new bill for S1. She's working on a new bill for S1. She says we're going to find a compromise. She has found a compromise. Members of the Senate are working hard every single day, but it's because of you all. You are not moving the needle. You are moving the mountain. So thank you for doing all that. And there is absolutely no way we could have made a quorum break possible without the dedicated men and women in the Texas Democratic Caucus we are mothers, fathers. We either work for somebody or we own our own business. We are involved in our communities, and we have said it is worth it. Democracy is worth it. We will walk out for 23 days as it is today, and we will stand up for this nation. So for my colleagues in the Texas House, let's give them a round of applause. And then finally, to you fellow lawmakers, I will tell you, we have said when we arrived here that our job was to rally the nation. And our job was to rally the nation and bring people to Washington, D.C., because just by chance, if we came together, we would not only get the Senate to hear us, we will also get them to act. And we will get them to act by bringing us a For the People Act and doing it before the recess, or like we've been saying from day one, recess can wait, our democracy cannot. This is a now or never moment for our country. We need to get this done. Let's do this before the August 6th recess. What do you think about that? And this is democracy in action. This is 500 lawmakers from across this country, all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Guam, coming together to say, we do not want a filibuster, we do not want a recess, we want one standard when it comes to voting in America, and that is the American standard, everybody. So let's keep up the fight. Thank you, Center for American Progress. Thank you, DFAD. Thank you to all our partners. We are in this together.
Once again, let's thank Representative Martinez Fisher and the entire Texas delegation for bravely leading this charge. And now I'm very excited to introduce the senator from the state I got to go to college in, from the wonderful Ocean State. Please join me in welcoming Senator Sheldon Whitehouse.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here and for doing this and keeping the pressure on. First, Rhode Island's a small state, so a Rhode Island shout out to Representative Carlos Taban, who is there he is, our Assistant Majority Leader. Carlos, good to see you here, sir. And I just want to urge you to keep the pressure on and to have faith and to have confidence. This bill does a lot of things. At its heart, it is an anti-corruption bill. And when you think about it as an anti-corruption bill, what you find is that 100% of independent voters, 100% of independent voters think that's something important. If we're going to win in 2022, it would be nice to have independent voters. And when 100% think it's important, that's pretty important. And of that 100%, 58% thinks it's the most important thing. And let me tell you, as somebody who spends a lot of time in that building, I think it's the most important thing. Because as Jane Mayer just wrote in the New Yorker this week, when you look behind voter suppression, you see dark money. When you look behind the effort to capture our court and turn it into a right-wing faculty lounge, you see dark money. When you look behind climate denial and all the obstruction we're seeing on trying to protect our planet,
Dark money.
You see dark money. And when you look behind Mitch McConnell, you see dark money. So this is a winning issue for it. You don't have to trust me. Look at the Republicans who are running ads against me, against Biden nominees, against this bill, on the grounds that it's dark money. Really? I mean, talk about having no shame and a lot of nerve. But it shows how powerful they know this issue is. If we can persist, we can get this done. Remember that in that all-important 1964 Voting Rights Act, the big civil rights bill of 64, we spent 3 months in the Senate on that bill. 3 steady months. And it changed the course of history. We can do that again. Thank you. God bless you. Let's get it done.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator Whitehouse. And now I have the pleasure of introducing State Representative Andres Cano from the 3rd District of Arizona.
Good afternoon. My name is Andres Cano, and I have the honor of representing District 3 in the Arizona House of Representatives. We're here today in solidarity because Arizonans are tired of the extremist legislators in our state passing laws that deny our freedom to vote. The mission of these power-hungry lawmakers is clear. Instead of offering solutions that bring us all together, they've chosen to stay stuck in a constant spiral of disinformation and conspiracy theories to erode confidence in our elections. And shame on them for doing that. In my home state, my fellow House and Senate Democrats, many here today with you in this fight, fought back against nearly 24 anti-voter laws that were introduced this year, and sadly many of those are now law. Republican legislators led by our governor, Doug Ducey, said yes to taking away our right to vote. They stripped 200,000 voters off of the permanent early voter list, making it harder for our communities of color to cast their ballot. And in the midst of all of this, folks, they've chosen chaos and confusion with these fake audits and recounts and court challenges, all in an effort to be on their good side of the former failed president. These attempts to hold us back are the result of decades of unchecked governance. But Americans, and indeed Arizonans, have had enough. We're done with those who wish to rewrite the rules so they can pick their voters, not the other way around. And it's why we're here to demand passage of the For the People Act. When voters vote, we do it because we care. We vote to invest in our schools. We vote to protect our immigrant and indigenous neighbors. Oh, you're done. That's a good cue to stop, right? All right. When voters vote, we do it because we care. We vote to invest in our schools. We vote to protect our immigrant and indigenous neighbors, to protect our LGBTQ loved ones. And we vote to keep the lights on and ensure that our kids and families have the opportunity to thrive and prosper. That's why we vote, America. And if we want these priorities to keep going, the American people deserve a Congress that will stand with them. Our message today is clear. Recess can wait, and we are urging Senators Kirsten Sinema and Mark Kelly to pass the For the People Act. Let's get the job done. Thank you, folks.
All right. Everyone hear me? Yeah. Woo! Awesome, great. All right, so I next have the pleasure of introducing Representative Renita Shannon from Georgia.
Recess can wait.
Democracy can.
Recess can wait.
Democracy can.
Recess can wait.
Democracy can.
Thank you. Ever since the Voting Rights Act was gutted in 2013, Black, brown, and AAPI Georgians have faced relentless attacks on their ability to exercise the right to vote. Since 2017, I've served on the House committee that deals with election law, and let me tell you, every single year, I have witnessed bills meant to suppress the vote sail through committee, even when their discriminatory effects have been directly called out. The result of this has been that with every election since 2013, Black, brown, and AAPI voters and organizers have had to try to relentlessly out-organize new voter suppression laws just to have their community voices heard. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. But the bottom line is, it shouldn't be that way.
That's right.
Now, we heard these voters loud and clear in the 2020 presidential election. And we heard them more specifically again in the Georgia U.S. Senate races. President Biden and Senate Democrats, these voters showed up for you. Now it's time for you to show up for them. Senate Democrats, you have the power to ensure free and fair elections, not only for Black, brown, and AAPI voters and indigenous voters, but you have the power to do it for everyone. Republicans cannot be used as the excuse not to get this done. Now, I know some Democrats support keeping the filibuster because it moderates large swings in policy no matter who's in charge, but in this very moment, the only thing it's doing is impeding justice, long overdue justice, for communities that have been targeted for systematic voter suppression. So recess can wait. Democracy can. Pass the For the People Act. Pass national standards for voting rights in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Senator Raphael Warnock. He is one of the Senate's most outspoken champions of voting rights and has been deeply involved in advocating for the For the People Act. Senator Warnock is in his first term representing the great state of Georgia, which is ground zero in the fight to protect the right to vote. Senator Warnock.
Senator Warnock!
Hello, everybody. Are you ready to stand up for our democracy? Listen, thank you all so very much for being here. And thank you for your voice. Thank you for showing up and reminding those of us who work in this house who we work for.
That's right.
We may work in the house, but it's not our house, it's the people's house. They would have the bells to chime when the preacher's singing. Are those church bells? Listen, this is a defining moment in America. And we need your voice right now. And let me say right at the outset, in case you have any doubts, that your voices are making a difference right now. You are making a huge difference. And so I want to encourage you to keep it up, to keep raising your voice, to keep standing up for our democracy, to keep standing up for voting rights. Because we debate about a lot of things in this democracy, but voting rights is about the democracy itself. It's the framework in which all of our arguments happen. And we can agree and we can disagree and we can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, the four most powerful words in a democracy are "the people have spoken." And right about now, there's some folk who are trying to keep the people from being able to speak in their own democracy, and I'm not about to stand by and allow that to happen without a fight. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud son of Georgia. Is Georgia in the house? Georgia is ground zero for so much these days. Who would have thought that at the end of the night on November 4th, when it looked like Joe Biden would be the president of the United States, that the majority of the Senate would still hang in the balance? And who would have predicted that you would need exactly 2 Senate seats to decide that majority? And what are the odds that both of those Senate seats would be in the same state? And if somebody gave you those odds ahead of time and they said, well, you get to have the majority and you get to pick the state that's going to give you the majority, who in the world would have picked Georgia? But Georgia stood up and delivered. Now Georgia's on everybody's mind. What they didn't understand is that we've been organizing and fighting and standing up against voter suppression for years. My own church sued the state of Georgia for its voter suppression tactics. And so what happened on January 5th wasn't magic, it was the result of hard work. And as a proud son of Georgia, I was so proud of my state. My dad, born in 1917, served during the World War II era, was born in Burke County, lived in Screven County, moved to Savannah, Georgia. My mother grew up in Waycross, Georgia. Y'all know where that is? Way across Georgia. Down in the south of the state. She grew up in the 1950s like a lot of black teenagers, picking somebody else's tobacco and picking somebody else's cotton. But because this is America, because we keep pushing towards our ideals, the 83-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton got a chance to pick her youngest son to be a United States Senator, because this is the United States of America. But what happened? She and others, a multiracial coalition of conscience standing up for the best in the American dream. And instead of celebrating that, state leaders got busy trying to silence the voices of the people. As I've said time and time again, this is really very simple. Some people don't want some people to vote.
That's right. That's right.
And so when they should have been busy trying to suppress the virus, they were busy trying to suppress your vote. Getting in the way of people providing relief who are trying to help folk who are standing in lines that shouldn't be that long in the first place. Making the mail-in process so complicated that you don't know if you did it right or not. Allowing any citizen to challenge any other citizen's vote. Encouraging this kind of mob and mentality and mayhem in our electoral process. And then giving partisan actors at the state level the ability to undermine the vote while the votes are still being cast. I went back and I listened to Martin Luther King Jr.'s most famous speech in 1963. Go back and read the whole speech. Don't just read the I Have a Dream part. Read the whole speech. Where in 1963, he's talking about a Southern governor with his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. Here we are in 2021, and they're trying to nullify our votes after our votes are cast all across this country. We know what this is. This is the Delta variant of Jim Crow voting laws. And the only vaccination is federal legislation. And so you keep standing up. You keep pushing us. You keep going to jail if necessary. I'm not telling you something that I'm not willing to do. I've been to jail before. But because this is America, I've been able to translate my protests into public policy. I went to jail in that building a few years ago standing up for Medicaid expansion. Nowadays, I write Medicaid expansion bills. So I just want to say I'm so proud to stand with you in this fight. And we need to stay here as long as it takes to pass voting rights. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We must build our country's infrastructure. America needs a home improvement project. But we must also repair and protect the infrastructure of our democracy. We do it for our children. We do it for the future. We do it in memory of John Lewis. You know, you can have infrastructure and Jim Crow laws. It's good to build roads and bridges, but John Lewis crossed a bridge. The bridge was already built. Somebody already had an infrastructure program. We just didn't have any rights. He crossed the bridge in order to build a bridge toward the future. In his memory and for all of our children, let's stand up and make sure that it happens in 2021. God bless all of you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Warnock. I'm going to try and cheer with you all. When voting rights are under attack, what do we do? When voting rights are under attack, what do we do? When fair districts are under attack, what do we do? When democracy is under attack, what do we do? Yes. Thank you. I'm excited now to introduce Senator Jeff Merkley, who is the original sponsor of the For the People Act in the Senate and has been a steadfast champion in the fight to secure its passage. He is in his third term representing the great state of Oregon. Please welcome Senator Merkley.
Well, how about another round of applause for Raphael Warnock, Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock. Amazing. You know, every time I hear him speak, and I think about what he said, that his parents picking cotton got to pick him to run and to vote for him as a U.S. Senator. Those folks in Georgia, what? They turned out, right? They knocked on doors. They registered 70,000 people before the runoff. They worked incredibly hard. And you know why he is our senator from Georgia? Because they had that power, access to the ballot box. So here we are now with a group of states across the country. They tend to be red trifecta states. That means the House, or the State House, the State Senate, and the governorship are controlled by Republicans. And they saw what Georgians did to elect John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, and they said, you know, we have to go back into our bag of tricks from pre-1965. And we have to erect barriers for people to vote from targeted communities. And who are those communities? Black Americans, other communities of color, Native Americans, poor Americans, and college students. Are we going to let them erect those barriers to the ballot box? No! Absolutely, we are not. But to do that, we have to pass an act. It's called the For the People Act. That's why you're here. Thank you for being here. For the People Act, I see all those signs. That act says you can't turn purple states to red states by manipulating and rigging the election. And it says you can't gerrymander the House of Representatives by basically changing how you select districts. In fact, it defends equal representation. You know, I've heard Republicans salivating. They say, hey, you know, we have a 15-vote advantage in the House of Representatives we wouldn't have otherwise but for our outstanding effort at gerrymandering 10 years ago. And now they're saying, but now we can do even more. And with just gerrymandering in 4 states, in Georgia, in North Carolina, in Florida, and Texas, we can ensure ourselves control of the House of Representatives by the powerful instead of the people. You know what? When I hear folks saying this, that they want to stop people from voting, you know, and then they have a clause, they say we're making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. You know what they're doing? They're making it hard to vote and easy to cheat by blocking Americans from voting. It's not just cheating, it should be a crime. People should be locked up for preventing people from voting here in the United States of America. Well, across the country, if you ask Republican citizens whether they want to take on gerrymandering, you know, they say yes, because they have the DNA of the Constitution in their heart. They believe in equal representation. That's the individuals. If you ask them, do you want to make sure every citizen has access to the ballot? They say yes, absolutely, because they believe in the vision of our Constitution. If you say you want to stop billionaires from buying elections with dark money, Republican citizens say yes, we want to stop that. But you know what happens in the U.S. Senate? Right up the road here? Not one Republican will stand up for the vision of our Constitution. And isn't that a shame? And don't we need to vote them out of office using the ballot box? So, my friends, this is a battle that has to happen this summer. The lists of voters will go out to the states, and they're going to start drawing the districts. It goes out on August 15th, the middle of this month. So we have to act now. So how about this? No recess until we pass the Voting Rights Act for every American. No recess until we stop billionaires from buying elections with dark money. No recess until we stop the gerrymandering in which politicians pick their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. Let's restore the vision of government of, by, and for the people so it will not perish from this earth this summer. And to do that, we have to pass the For the People Act. Let's get it done. Thank you all very much.
Let's thank Senator Merkley one more time. Now I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. He is from the great state of New Mexico, one of the most beautiful parts of our country. So please join me in welcoming Senator Benray Luhan.
How y'all doing? Oh, come on now. When you had Senator Warnock out here, you told us how you were doing. Now tell me how you're all doing. That's a little bit better. It's good to see you all. It's good to see the faces, to see everyone across America that is so responsible for coming together, for bringing a voice to the responsibility that we all have. Now, I see many friends here that back in 2017, we all got together. We didn't have the majority in the House. We didn't have it in the Senate. And we said, if we go out and we work to earn the trust of the American people, we're going to do a few things, right? One of those was, if we win back the majority in the House and we get the majority back in the Senate and we win the presidency, we were going to pass the For the People Act. And we made a commitment that we said, look, we can do a lot of good work. We can make sure that we lower prescription drug prices. We can make sure that we pass equality legislation. We can end pay discrimination across the country. We can pass legislation that brings attention to the gun violence and requires the Congress to finally act. But an important part of this, a key part of this, was standing up to the gerrymandering. These laws that we knew that people were working on to make it harder for you to vote, to make it harder for me to vote. Where we saw some states targeting Native American voters very aggressively and very directly, not because they felt that they were breaking the law, but because they were scared that they could not win unless they took those voting rights away. The same thing happened in black communities and Latino and Latina communities across America. This was just happening and it was spreading. And now we have this cancer. This cancer that's spreading, that started first 7 months this year where 18 states enacted 30 laws in the first 7 months of this year to make it harder for people to vote. It's spreading like a cancer. Not because they're worried about trying to protect the law, but because they're scared of losing. Because you came out in such big numbers in 2018 and in 2020, you're seeing these Republican-led states come forward with these horrible laws. So we can do something, right? I'm now a member of the United States Senate after I worked with you all helping to win back the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, as soon as we got back, Speaker Pelosi put the For the People Act. It was the first bill. I see my brother John Sarbanes here. The first bill we acted, we passed it out of the House, and they passed it again out of the House. Now we've got to do something in the Senate. It's why I appreciate every lesson, every chance I had to get to sit at the feet of a great American by the name of John Lewis. And he did teach us how to speak up and how to stand up, and he led by example, and he taught us to get into good trouble. Well, it's about time that we get into some good trouble. And look, if we can't get 10 of our Republican colleagues to join us here, all we got to do is end the filibuster. All we have to do is say that we're going to make sure we stand strong to protect the American people and get this done. So, look, brothers and sisters from across America that are here today, I want to say thank you for reminding us, for standing strong, for not letting go of this, and for not letting go until we pass the For the People Act, until we protect voting rights, and we get this done federally so we don't see this ridiculous action across every corridor of America. So you ready to act? Yeah. You ready to get the job done? Yeah. Let's get this done, everyone. It's an honor to see you. Thanks for inspiring me.
Thank you, Senator Luhan. And now I am honored to introduce Representative John Sarbanes, who has been in this fight from the beginning as the champion and assembler of the For the People Act in the House of Representatives. Woo! He has represented Maryland's 3rd Congressional District for 14 years in the U.S. House, and he chairs the Democracy Reform Task Force. Thank you, Representative Sarbanes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Jana. there's nothing more powerful than the voice of the people. And that's what you are expressing here today. I want to thank everybody who came out to stand behind this effort, the most sustained campaign for democracy reform that we've seen in decades in this country. I want to thank the legislators who've come from all over America. Let's give them a hand for showing up for democracy. They're here on behalf of their constituents who are worried about this perilous moment that we are facing right now in America. If you look at those communities across the country that are suffering the most from racial violence at the hands of institutions and organizations, if you look at those communities that are falling behind when it comes to access to education and health care, if you look at the communities where toxic waste dumps have been sited or polluting factories have been built, these are the same communities whose political voice in our democracy has been diminished for years. And now there's a campaign to suffocate their voices even more that we're seeing across the country. We know that voter suppression and election subversion suppress and suffocate and diminish the voice of the people out in the country. And we know that big money and special interests diminish the voice of the people here in Washington. That's what the For the People Act is trying to address, to lift up the voice of the people, to fight back against voter suppression and election subversion, to fight back against the influence that big money has in our politics and the way public policy gets made in Washington. I want to thank you because there have been many moments along the way in this journey where the press and the punditry and the insiders and the conventional wisdom of Washington has written an epitaph about the prospects of getting this legislation over the line, but you refused to read that memo. You decided that you were going to keep reading the memo that came from John Lewis that said to the American people, subject line, never give up and never give in. That's what John Lewis said to us whenever we were together, never give up and never give in. That's the memo that you're reading, and you keep showing up. You keep fighting back against the conventional wisdom that says this can't happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon because of the energy that you're bringing to Washington. So, to take John Lewis at his word, the clarion call he gave to us every time we were in his midst. We are not going to give up on American democracy. We are not going to give in to voter suppression. We're not going to give in to election subversion, and we're not going to give in to big money in Washington corrupting our politics. We are going to win this fight. We are going to pass the For the People Act, and if we have to change the rules in the Senate to get it done, so be it. Thank you all for being out here today.
Once again, for Congressman John Sarbanes. Remember, he is the assembler of this law. When I introduced him he joined a call last night, and I wanted to say he's the author of the law. He said, no. He wants to be introduced as the assembler of the For the People Act. So let's thank him once again for helping spearhead this. And now I'm really excited to introduce the senator from my home state, the wonderful Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I actually got to meet Senator Casey in 2016. He probably doesn't remember this, but it was at the White House when my Pittsburgh Penguins won the Stanley Cup. And so I was really... where's my Pittsburgh delegation here? Or my Pennsylvania delegation? So join me in welcoming Senator Bob Casey.
Hey, thanks, everyone. I want to make sure that I am brief. I'm going to be very brief because we're voting. But I want you to know something. I want to first and foremost thank you for being here. Give yourselves a hand for the work that you're doing. Look, this is really simple. You've got legislatures across the country that are passing voter suppression bills, more than 400 of them. At their core, they're about one thing, and we got to say this loudly and clearly. These voter suppression bills, at their core, are about white supremacy. That's one of the many reasons we have to stop them or override them with federal legislation. We cannot allow a continuation of the white supremacy that has led to so many problems for so many Americans, and in particular, of course, communities of color. All throughout the country, you have legislators that are following the former president down a dark path. There's no question about it where they're headed. They are mad that the 2020 election elected Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and a Democratic Senate. They don't want that to happen again, so they're going to try to prevent people from voting. Senate Bill 1 will remedy that. We'll make sure that we allow people access to the right to vote. You make that possible. Let me say this about folks who are here. I know you're here from all over the country, but I do want to thank and salute the members of this audience who are from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Please let your voice be heard. We'll do that again. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, we're grateful for that, but I want to thank you all for doing the work that you're doing to make sure that we pass Senate Bill 1. And I know it's about more than voting rights. It's about dark money. It's also about ethics. It's also about moving our country in a direction where more people can have access to the ballot box, whether they have a disability or whether they're in any other circumstance that they face in life. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm determined to pass it, even as Representative Sarbanes said, even if that means changing the Senate rule on 60 votes. Thank you, and God bless your work.
Once again, for my home state senator, Bob Casey. And now I'm introducing from the great state of New Jersey, someone you probably recognize, Senator Cory Booker, who, when we found out he was speaking, normally every summer, I actually shave my head, and then I found out he was speaking. I thought about doing yesterday, but I thought that I didn't want to be showed up so much by his wonderful due. So please join me in welcoming Senator Cory Booker.
Hello, everybody! So we know how change is made. Change does not come from Washington. It comes to Washington by people who come here demanding, fighting for, standing up for change. But this is not about change. This is about preserving the very ideals of our country. We know what is at stake when they go after voting rights. We don't know this just about our context. We know this in Hungary. When people get elected and they decide to go from a democracy to an authoritarian government by changing the rules to stay in power. We know this in Turkey, where you get democratically elected, but when you get into power, you begin to change the laws so that you stay in power. All across the world right now, there is an assault on the ideas of freedom and equality and inclusion and democracy. But we together stand up today and say, not here, not now, not on our watch. And I know many of us are focusing on the challenge that Republican legislature after Republican legislature in state after state. But I'm here to maybe go against the grain and tell you what my real concern is. 2 generations ago in the civil rights movement, we went up against people who were spewing hate. Their mouths were dripping with violent rhetoric. But leaders far greater than anyone serving in the Capitol stood up and reminded us what the real challenge is. At the time of the battles for voting rights, in the years before my birth, imprisoned in a jail cell in Birmingham, Martin Luther King challenged us to not let the hate drive us to hate, to not let the darkness drive us into despair. He talked about what we really have to repent for. He said, in today's day and age, we must repent not just for the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. There are too many people right now who should be with us today that are not standing in solidarity with this fight. We've got too many bystanders and not enough upstanders. We got too many sideline sitters and not enough of the women and the men in the arena. This is not just about the angry, vile acts of some. It is about the appalling silence of the many. And that's where John Lewis's memory must really call us. We know John Lewis is a legend, but he was just a young man in his early 20s. When he left a safe college campus, when he got off the sidelines and threw himself into the effort, he was beaten on the backs of buses. He was beaten on a bridge in Alabama. He was bloodied at the sit-ins. But he knew that voting rights wouldn't come by a bunch of folks in the Senate getting together and say, hey, y'all, you know what? Let's give those Negro people their voting rights. That's not how change is made. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. And there are people that want to take us back now. They don't represent the majority of us, but they are leveraging their power. We see it in the Senate, where an archaic rule that is not a part of our Constitution, called the filibuster, is giving the tyranny of the minority a different name. But they filibustered the Civil Rights Act. They filibustered the Voting Rights Act. They filibustered the Fair Housing Act. But we, the people, overcame that filibuster. And so I pledge to you, I will stand with you. I will work with you. We must wake up the echoes of our ancestors. We must call to the conscience of our country. We must let everyone understand that freedom is not free, that progress will never remain unless it is struggled for and fought for and worked for and sacrificed for. That is the story of America, when imperfect geniuses came together and put forth this daring dream, this dangerous dream of America. There was no inevitability about it. Every generation has had to expand upon the original ideals to include women and gay people and Native Americans and black folks and all folks. And now it's our generation's turn. What will be our epitaph? What will be the story of now that we went back on women's rights, that we went back on workers' rights, that we went back on voting rights? I say no! Let us lead towards securing this democracy's most sacred ideals. Let us lead to making sure that every American has the right to vote. Let us lead on the ideals of democracy. Let us lead to being a light unto all nations. Let us lead like our greatest ancestors did. Let us lead with love. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senator Booker. I am excited now to introduce Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. He has been a steadfast supporter of the For the People Act, especially in the provisions to get big money out of our political system and increase transparency in our government. Let me introduce Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to thank all the patriots who are gathered here today to demand that we pass the For the People Act to protect our democracy. Thank you all for being here. I think you all remember well, it was just earlier this year, January 6th, where we saw a violent mob attack the Capitol of the United States, right behind us. They attacked the Capitol of the United States to try to overturn the vote of we, the people. And so it is our job now, not only to protect the building, which we must do because it is a representation of the citadel of democracy, but we must protect the very thing that they attacked the Capitol about, their effort to undermine our democracy, and you're here to stand up for our democracy, and we thank all of you for being here, the legislators from Texas, those who are here in unity with the legislators of Texas. Now here's the good news. After that violent attack, members of Congress stood here and stayed here late into the night to make sure we finished the count, to make sure that we counted all of the electoral votes, and that is why President Biden and Kamala Harris were elected President and Vice President of the United States. But that fight didn't end there. In fact, what we saw was when they were unsuccessful at blocking the people's will in the Capitol on the presidential vote, they went around the country to state legislatures. And that's why we're seeing in Texas and Florida and Georgia and all these other states efforts to block people's access to the voting booth, to undermine our democracy, to try to win elections by subtraction rather than by addition. That's what's happening here. And we need to make sure that those anti-democratic forces don't prevail in the state legislatures any more than they did here in the United States Capitol. Are we going to do that? So, to all those state legislatures in Republican-dominated capitals, you are right to be here. You are here to defend our democracy. You are the patriots. And you're right to be here not just to ask Congress to protect our democracy, but to demand that Congress protect our democracy, because the Congress is the only institution in the country that can establish uniform protections to the ballot box, not just here, not just in one state, but in every state. And that is why the work that we have to do is required to protect our democracy. Now, let's see how we're going to get it done. We need you to help get it done. I agree with my friend and colleague, Cory Booker. We need to end the filibuster and do it now. You know, the filibuster, as was said, is nowhere to be found in the Constitution. It's an invention of the United States Senate. And it's an anti-democratic invention, not capital D Democrats, small d democracy. Because what it does is take an institution, the Senate, which is already tilted against the majority, and make it even more so. It compounds the anti-democratic nature of the United States Senate, giving a very small minority the power to block the will of we the people. And so it is a crazy system where we have exceptions to the filibuster to pass a 2017 Trump tax cut, but we don't have exceptions to the filibuster to pass the For the People Act and protect our democracy. That is a disgrace. What kind of system is that where you say, okay, 51 senators can give big corporations a tax cut, but 51 senators or 50 senators, the vice president, cannot protect the democracy of the United States? That is a scandal, and we need to keep fighting till we overturn it. Let me just say one other thing about what's in the For the People Act, something that many of us have been working for a very long time. To get secret money out of politics. As we speak, people who don't want all of you to know who they are spending tens of millions of dollars to try to buy elections in the United States of America. We have a problem with too much money in politics. but let's at least for now solve the issue of getting rid of secret money in politics, which is corrupting our system. That is something for the people. So, brothers and sisters, thank you for being here. You're in the right place. We need to act because the United States Congress is the only institution that can protect our democracy by adopting those uniform national standards to protect the ballot box. We know what's going on here. We've seen what happened in North Carolina, where the court itself found that these legislators, state legislators, were targeting African Americans with surgical precision. They're going after people of color, and they're going after young voters, and they're trying to make it harder for people to vote. Just like the mob here tried to block the vote on January 6th. So we prevailed in the end on January 6th, but the Trump lie, the big lie, is still out there. We've got to kill it, and we have to protect our democracy. Thank you all for being here.
Once again, let's thank Senator Van Hollen. I mentioned to him when he was coming up that I used to work to bring up several state legislators to kick us off to really talk about what's happening at the front lines of our states. And that includes Senator Annette Taddeo from Florida, Senator Jordan Harris from Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Representative Donna Lazinski from Michigan, and Assemblywoman Latrice Walker from New York. Please thank them for coming to the stage.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I'm Senator Annette Taddeo from Miami, Florida, and I am the first Latina Democrat in the Florida Senate. I'm here because Florida has a red tide problem. A red tide problem not just in the waters of Southwest Florida, but a red tide problem in the Florida legislature. Red tide in our waters kills fish, creates a bad smell in the air, and causes respiratory irritation in humans. Red tide in the Florida legislature kills democracy and restricts our freedom to vote. So what are some of the symptoms of this red tide in the Florida legislature? Well, it appears to cause a hearing problem. When the people of Florida passed a constitutional amendment to draw fair districts, instead of listening to the voters, the legislative GOP leadership literally engaged in a conspiracy with political operatives to draw maps like mine that favored the GOP. And they slipped those maps into the legislative process in an effort to try and keep that from the public. When the people of Florida passed the constitutional amendment to allow ex-felons to vote, overwhelmingly passed this, instead of listening to the voters, the Florida legislature ignored them and created a poll tax for ex-felons. When the voters voted in record numbers by mail in this last election and by using the vote by mail drop boxes, the legislature, instead of listening, passed a bill to make it more difficult to vote by mail and to limit drop boxes. And to add insult to injury, our governor signed that bill live on Fox News with no other media allowed. Our environmental scientists are coming up with solutions for the red tide in our waters. The red tide in the legislature, it can't be cured by scientists or doctors, but it can be cured by the U.S. Senate passing the For the People's Act. You know, in my home state of Florida, especially the area I represent in South Florida, we are constantly fighting for democracy in places like Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And I am 100% there in that fight for freedom. But I am also here in Washington, D.C. because the freedom to vote and to have the people elect their own representatives instead of politicians picking their voters is also an urgent matter right here in the United States of America. That's why we say loud and clear, recess can wait, democracy can't. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. It is such an honor to be here with my colleagues from across the nation. You know, we are the boots on the ground. We are the front line. We're the ones with the bills in front of us and the red and green buttons to press, yes or no. My name is Donna Lisinski, and I'm the House Democratic leader in Michigan. Since November of 2020, our democratic institutions have been under attack in Michigan and across our nation. President Biden won Michigan by 156,000 votes. But that has not stopped Republicans in Michigan and across the nation from trying to put up roadblocks to our democratic freedom to vote, to make it harder for us to vote, to deter and discourage people from voting. Restricting and hampering our right to vote, our freedom to vote, is not what the Great Lakes state stands for, and we're going to fight these efforts every step of the way. We have to be smarter. We have to be clever. Our Republicans in Michigan have found a way to go around the Democratic governor, the governor I'm honored to serve with, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, to go around our governor by using moneyed interest to collect signatures to end the freedom to vote. That will not go in front of the governor. That will take away her veto power. And that's why this federal rights voting legislation is so critically needed. You know, I'm standing here just days away from the 7-month anniversary of the insurrection at our Capitol. And I have many of my colleagues here with me from Michigan, Representative Hood, Manoogian, Cole Lazar, Senator Adam Hollier. And it was in our Capitol in Michigan on April 30th that we were the dress rehearsal for the insurrection here at the Capitol. As myself and my colleagues stood together with militiamen with assault rifles, rounds of ammunition strapped to their bodies, as we stood inside swinging doors, as the floor shook with their anger and their chants, their weapons just a hair trigger away from changing our lives, our families' lives, and our state forever. As they took high positions in the galleries above us, because we're open to the public. And we stood there and we did our jobs. No political intimidation, no domestic terrorists are going to stop us from doing our job, and our job right now is to protect the freedom to vote. Now, as a leader, we need to learn from this. We need to learn from the insurrection. We need to learn from what happened in Michigan. We need to learn from these clever loopholes that are being pointed out to us that the Republicans take, these end runs around to try to maintain power. And that's why I called to create a state-level bipartisan committee to investigate Michigan's unique role in the insurrection here at the Capitol. Because Michigan has been ground zero. We were the dress rehearsal. Michigan's Republicans signed on to a lawsuit to overturn the rights of every Michigan vote, to overturn every Michigander's vote. My colleague sent a letter to Vice President Mike Pence demanding that he delay the peaceful transfer of power. A group of Michigan Republicans attempted to fraudulently enter the Capitol and cast false electoral votes and had to be turned away by our state police. Media reports and many, many photographs show our Senate Majority Leader standing with militia members, meeting with them privately to give them advice and counsel. These are the same militia groups, the same men who plotted to kidnap and murder Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They participated in the January 6th insurrection, and our Michigan Republicans still continue to promote the conspiracy theories that led to the insurrection, that lead people to believe that our vote should be taken away. I will not rest. My colleagues here today will not rest. My colleagues in Michigan not rest. We will stand with all of you in the state legislatures against the violence, the harassment, and the intimidation that's being used to take away our freedom to vote. When it comes to protecting our democracy, protecting our freedom to vote, we deserve answers about the insurrection, we deserve answers about what happened, and we deserve to stand together and tell everyone, recess can wait. Democracy can't. Recess can wait. Democracy can't. Recess can wait. Democracy can't. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Assemblywoman Latrice Walker, the chair of the Election Law Committee in the great state of New York. I also am here with my colleague, Senator Rachel May. We want to acknowledge all of our colleagues here in government, particularly those from the great state of Texas, who are doing incredible work for the people all across our nation. And thank you to all of the organizations that are represented today that work tirelessly on behalf of our communities. While New York is passing laws to make voting easy, efficient, fair, and accessible by restoring the freedom to vote to people who are on parole, online and automatic voter registration, early voting, public financing of campaigns, and no excuse absentee balloting, 48 other states have introduced nearly 400 bills that are being passed that threaten the full and fair access to the ballot and shocks the very conscience of our democratic being and makes America racist again. The For the People Act is the civil rights issue of our time. Its passage ensures that we represent districts that are free of partisan gerrymandering, tears down the strongholds of deliberate barriers to voting, and ensures that the people are able to elect representatives like my colleagues and who are here in D.C. today, who fight daily for access to housing, jobs, quality education for children, health care for our families, and against gun violence, but most importantly, in order for us to receive pandemic relief. I leave with you today the hashtag recess can wait, but our democracy can't. In the event that we are here today to call on our New York state senators, of course, Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, to pass the For the People Act. But as a New Yorker, we have taken on a unique responsibility to say that if D.C. can't do it, New York will. And we have introduced the John Lewis Voting Rights Act of the state of New York, and we encourage all of our state legislatures across the country to do the same. If D.C. can't do it, then you do it. Today, we need you to bust up the filibuster. We came today ready for the political spar because we know that when we fight, we win. And we stand here today to say that when our voting rights are under attack, what are we going to do? When our voting rights are under attack, what are we going to do? Thank you. Stand up and let's fight back.
How y'all doing? Oh, come on, y'all can do better. How y'all doing? Listen, I'm a former school teacher, and I grew up in the black church, so I'm used to a little call and response, so I'm gonna need y'all here. So, that's right. I'm State Representative Jordan Harris, the Democratic Whip of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. So glad to be here with you. Let me first say that I'm so glad to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, our siblings from the great state of Texas. So glad to stand with them. Give a shout out to the sign language interpreter too, because this brother, he been here the whole time. You just making it happen. We appreciate you, brother. Listen, across this country, in states big and small, voter suppression bills have sprung up like wells to deny folks the right to vote. But let us be clear about what we're actually talking about. Voter suppression ain't about suppressing everybody's right to vote. It's about suppressing some of our right to vote. And the some of those folks that they're trying to suppress is folks that look like me. Let's call a spade a spade.
Call them out.
Whenever you go to a black cookout, you're going to play some spades. So let's talk about calling a spade here today. The truth of the matter is voter suppression ain't about everybody not voting. It's about some of us not voting. Some folks want some Americans to vote and other Americans not to be able to. And why is that? Because there are some folks in this country who would like to take us back. When folks talk about America being great again, I oftentimes wonder what time in American history are they talking about?
You know it.
We got to call a spade a spade. Voter suppression is about making sure that some of us can't raise our voice. It's about making sure that some of us can't decide where our children go to school. It's about making sure that some of us can't decide the gun laws that happen in our community. It's about making sure that some of us can't get health care. It's about making sure that some of us don't get paid family leave. That's what voter suppression is about in this country and my Commonwealth and across states across this nation. Let's talk about what this is really about. Voting is about power. Those who win the vote get the power. And when they get the power, they get to do what it is they want to do with that power. And for far too long, our votes have been silenced to give others the power. But one of my mentors used to say, power to the people, because it's the people's power. And I'm here today to stand in solidarity and let you know that the great people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Guzman and Malcolm and Danilo and Nancy and Dan Williams, look, we're going to go wherever it takes. We're going to be wherever we need to be to make sure that our voice is heard. Because when our voices are heard, our children get the quality of education that they deserve. When our voices are heard, we get the health care that we deserve. When our voices are heard, we get the type of policing in our communities that we deserve. When our voices are heard, we get to stand and be Americans. Understand something. What happened in this Capitol was about not just stopping a vote, it was about destroying the experiment. It was about destroying the future of this multicultural country that so many of us are proud of. It was about going back to a history that oppressed far too many people in this nation. So that's why this is important. Because your life and my life and the life of your unborn children, your unborn grandchildren, those lives are on the line when we talk about voting rights and voting suppression. So yes, recess can wait, but democracy can. It can't wait because my mama's life's on the line. It can't wait because my unborn children, their lives are on the line. That's why this cannot wait. And we ain't gonna let it wait. I'm from South Philly. And when you put somebody from South Philly in the corner, we know how to fight. So I tell anybody who wants to take away my votes, if you want to take it away, you better come ready to fight. And it's a whole lot of state legislators, and we ready to fight as well. Because recess can wait, democracy can't.
Once again, let's thank our legislators from New York, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida. And now I'm inviting up to the stage Representative Omiria Scott from Mississippi, Representative Crystal Matthews from South Carolina, Delegate Mike Pushin from West Virginia, Representative Manny Espitia from New Hampshire, and Senator Natalie Murdoch from North Carolina. Give them a round of applause.
We thank the Lord for the opportunity to be here today. Being from Mississippi, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act both have a very deep meaning for us. You see, our people in Mississippi understand the importance of federal intervention when the democracy of this country was at stake. 156 years ago, this United States Congress passed enhanced federal policies that allowed black people to own property, to build businesses, schools, hospitals, and churches. Black people used these 13 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days of Reconstruction to improve their social and economic situation. This change could only occur because black people had the freedom to vote. Here we are, 144 years later, and this republic is being threatened by the same forces espousing the same 1860s views and values of the use of terror and violence, and employing our state legislators to bring the political capacity to attempt to take away our voting freedoms. My state, Mississippi, has already revived that old blueprint of Jim Crow tactics, black codes, and a complicit state government that passes laws which are designed to impede the freedom to vote. So it is no surprise today that the state of Mississippi has some of the strictest voter ID laws in the country, that the state of Mississippi has some of the strictest absentee voting processes in America, that the state of Mississippi has the highest felony incarceration rate of black men in America, which causes them, in many cases, to lose the right to vote. We needed federal intervention in 1865. We needed federal intervention in Mississippi in 1965. And we need federal intervention in Mississippi and all over this country in 2021. Mississippians have fought too hard and given too much just to have the freedom to register and just to have the freedom to vote. There's been too much hurt, too much blood, too much pain, and too much death for those of us in Mississippi to turn around now. Schwerner, Goodman, Malcolm, and Martin gave too much to be on the right side of history. So we know today, for these people to be on the right side of history in the United States Senate, recess can wait. But let us not forget that there were others who were on the right side of history. Herbert Lee, who was a farmer in Amite County, who was killed by a Mississippi state legislator, E.H. Hurst, shot dead, and the young man who testified against him was killed in his front yard, and his name was Lewis Allen. We have to do these things in memory of these people, and that is why recess can't wait. Recess can wait because Henry D., who was 19 years old, and a mill worker, and Charles Moore, who was 19 years old, a college student, were out registering people to vote. The last time they were seen, they were buying a hamburger in Franklin County. The next time their family members saw them, they were wrapped to a motor in chains dragged out of the Mississippi River. You can't tell me that these folks over here have not must recognize that they have to work to vote to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Act. Recess has to wait. And then finally, Lamar Smith and so many others. But Mr. Smith was trying to get people to vote absentee to protect black people so that they could vote in secret and in private and would not be intimidated. He was killed in front of the courthouse steps in the county where Cindy Hyde Smith is from. So I am encouraging all of you. I am calling on Cindy Hyde Smith and Roger Wicker to support these two initiatives, and in memory of all of the blood, the hurt, the pain, and the death in Mississippi. Stay over there and do your work. Recess can wait.
Good afternoon, y'all. Good afternoon. I am Crystal Matthews, and I am from the great state of South Carolina. I represent District 117, and I am here today simply to encourage those of our brothers and sisters that are in the Senate
to stand their ground, keep their back strong, and fight for what we have elected them to fight for. I am here to encourage all of you to stand your ground back home. Like they say in church, this country will be what we make it. We can't leave it up to somebody else. A lot of times we always think it's going to be somebody else, but today it is going to be us. We have to make sure that when we go home, we touch a neighbor, we tell a friend, and we stand up for the rights that we were given in the Constitution. When we talk about voting rights and when we talk about barriers to voting, the groups that I see here are the ones that have always had barriers to voting. So let's not kid ourselves. This is no new thing for us to fight, right? Women have been fighting for the right to vote. Our elderly community have always had a problem with voting. We've had young people that don't know how to vote when they're at college and their ballots are cast and not counted. And then we talk about minorities. I say something all the time, and I want to share it very briefly with you all. Stop letting them use your face and not your voice. When it's time to campaign, they come to get you and take pictures with you, but they don't want to actually hear what you have to say. They want to use your face on their campaign materials, on their websites, sometimes sneaking a photo while you're talking and don't even know they're using it. But don't let them use your face and not your voice. Take that with you and keep fighting. Recess can wait, but our democracy cannot.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Pushkin. I'm the caucus chair for the Democrats in the West Virginia House of Delegates. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Delegate Cody Thompson and Delegate Kayla Young, also from the great state of West Virginia. West Virginia is not just a beautiful place with the friendliest people in the world. We also have the good fortune of being represented by our senior senator, a senator who truly understands the importance of voting rights and protecting them. He understands the importance of the freedom to vote in our democracy. Because Senator Manchin was not just our former governor, he served as our Secretary of State as well. So as the former chief election officer for the state of West Virginia, he understands the historic nature of this issue that brings us here today, the importance of free and fair elections. And while I may not always agree 100% with my senator, there is one thing we are in complete agreement on, and that is the need to always seek common ground, the need to bring more voices to the table, and the need to get the job done. So Senator Manchin, to his credit, has drafted a reasonable compromise to the bill in efforts to garner bipartisan support for voting rights. And as someone who has I have recently attended public hearings across the state of West Virginia, I'm happy to report that there is bipartisan support for the provisions in the Manchin compromise. And that support comes from the folks who the senator cares about the most, the people of the state of West Virginia. Because nobody outside of Republican leadership favors partisan gerrymandering. And nobody outside of Republican leadership thinks there's not nearly enough dark money in politics. So we can all agree that our constitutional republic can only exist if we keep our elections free and fair. The Manchin Compromise has bipartisan support. Well, not from the Republicans in this building, but from the Republicans and the Democrats in the state of West Virginia and every single other state in this beautiful country. So I'm confident that my senator and my friend Joe Manchin will seize this moment and break Mitch McConnell's stranglehold on our democracy and get the job done before the Senate breaks for recess. So I urge everyone attending to call Senator Manchin's office, thank him for offering this fair and reasonable proposal, and let him know how much we appreciate him standing up for our democracy. Let's get it done, and let's go Mountaineers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was gonna say, are y'all alive? Well, what's good? My name is Manny Esvitia. I'm a state representative from New Hampshire, representing the people of Ward 4 in Nashville, and I'm joined with my colleagues, Representative Ellen Reed and Representative Maria Perez. And you know, New Hampshire is a beautiful state full of hardworking people. Most of y'all see it every 4 years for our First in the Nation primary. But you know, when we typically go out, we vote. We're known for that, and we're active participants in our elections. But members of the New Hampshire Republican Party have made voting harder, and instead of making it more accessible, they have passed legislation to make it harder for students, for people of color, and others to vote. They have shunned vote by mail legislation. We had a chance to pass an independent redistricting commission last year in the last session, and the governor vetoed it. They passed a bill specifically to block the For the People Act in New Hampshire, which would be unconstitutional. They passed that. A bill signed by our governor, Republican Chris Sununu. And this is absolutely dangerous, but there is hope. Our congressional representatives and our senators are standing up for our democracy, and I want to thank Senator Hassan and Senator Shaheen for their support and being co-sponsors on the For the People Act. But you know, this bill will deliver and make sure that citizens have access to the ballot, that they will end gerrymandering so that voters, not politicians, are picking their elected officials, and finally bringing transparency to help get dark money out of politics. So I want to thank the Texas electeds who put their needs, the needs of their constituents ahead of themselves and are leading the effort here, along with all of y'all who are here from all over the country. We need the For the People Act yesterday, but we can't wait any longer. Recess can wait, but our democracy can't. So thank y'all.
All right, how's everybody doing? I'm from the South, we say y'all. How y'all doing? Senator Natalie Murdoch, a daughter of the South, a North Carolina native, and I'm proud to represent North Carolina as the first black woman under 40 ever to be elected in our General Assembly. Also proud to have my colleagues with me in the House, Representative Candy Smith, Representative Ricky Hurtado, first Latino member of our General Assembly in the history, as well as Representative Pricey Harrison. I love my home state. Unfortunately, one of the perpetual black eyes on North Carolina is our history of racial gerrymandering and targeting black voters with surgical precision. And our state constitution still references a literacy test to vote. We are here today because in these times of Jim Crow 2.0, voter suppression is not as flagrant as it was when my ancestors fought. The fire hoses and attack dogs have been replaced with complex and oppressive laws fueled by the big lie that not only make it harder to vote, but harder for those votes to count. Now, anti-democracy legislators want to attack our board of elections and throw out valid ballots. They want to take these legal votes and simply throw them in the trash. My aunts and uncles marched alongside the ANT4 and led the 1960s Greensboro sit-ins and are still marching till this day to protect our right to vote. It's been 60 years and they are tired. They are tired. On behalf of these tireless advocates, I ask President Biden and U.S. senators to act now. The truth of democracy is that it's very fragile. It is founded and reestablished daily. Our freedom and liberty are not guaranteed. We must rely on eternal vigilance to keep it alive. I stand proudly today not to romanticize the past, but to fight to ensure that this remains the land of the free and the home of the brave. So again, we say to the U.S. Senate, recess can wait, democracy cannot.
That's why we're here. We got you.
Once again, please give it up for our slate of legislators who just spoke. So I'm very excited to provide a musical interlude. And we have joining me on the stage is Shakara Rogers. She's an artist around here in the D.C. area that performs all over this region. She's originally from Philadelphia. I'm from Pittsburgh, and so I'll forgive her for being from the wrong side of the state. But no, I tease. She is a wife. She's a mother of two. She's a music teacher. She's an entrepreneur, and so much more. So please join me in welcoming Shakara Rogers.
Well, I
woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind, yeah. Stayed on freedom. My Lord, I'm walking and talking with my mind, yeah. Stayed on freedom. Yeah, I'm walking and talking with my mind, yeah. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, yeah, hallelujah. I'll be singing and crying with my mind, yeah. Stayed on freedom. I'll be singing and praying with my mind, yeah. Stayed on free. My Jesus, I'll be singing and crying with my mind, yeah. Freedom, hallelujah, hey, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Thank you so much. Let's hear another round of applause. Woo! I would like to introduce our next set of speakers. We have Representative Gina Hinojosa from Texas. We have Carlos Guillermo Smith from Florida. Representative B. Wynn from Georgia. And that's what we got. All right, everybody come on up.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Representative Gina Hinojosa. I represent Austin, Texas, and I'm going to tell you a story, a 2-minute story. It's a story about how Texas Democratic House members broke quorum and woke a nation. And I said earlier, we did not have a plan. Here's what happened. It was the last day of our regular session. We had spent 6 months fighting against an oppressive agenda of all far-right, red meat extremist issues. Here we were on the last day of session, and Republicans were now going to try to pass a bill to make it hard to hold them accountable for what they had just done to Texans. And I remember saying on the House floor, I'm done. I'm done. So what happened was we formed a black-brown coalition of members. We left the floor of the House. This was the first time we broke quorum back in May. But let me tell you what the first people who walked off the floor were the women of the Texas House. The women standing back here, cheer for the women elected leaders, and the men who support us, the men who have our backs. So we did not have a plan, but we had a dream. My colleague Trey Martinez-Fisher said, let's go to Washington and urge them to pass federal voting rights legislation. I said, that sounds good because this sucks. So that's what we did. And now you all being here helps make our dream a reality. So thank you to all the leaders from across this country who are here to help us. Look, when you're in the moment, when you are in a moment of history, it's hard to see that you're in that moment. But I represent Austin, Texas, and Central Texas, and there was one to President Lyndon Johnson, who championed and passed federal voting rights legislation in 1965, over 50 years ago. Here we are today fighting for those same rights, and we need our President Biden to meet the moment, join in, champion our fight for the people.
I think I'm next. All right. Good afternoon. I am Florida State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. Do we have Florida in the house? Anyone from Florida? and I represent House District 49 in Orlando. You know, on November 4th, 2020, our governor in Florida, Ron DeSantis, said that Florida's election process was a, quote, model for the rest of the nation to follow. He said that the day after the November election in 2020. 6 months later, DeSantis is live on Fox News just a few miles down the road from Mar-a-Lago, signing into law a major overhaul of our elections process that creates new barriers to our vote-by-mail process, restricts the use of secure drop boxes, puts undue burdens on supervisors of elections offices, discourages voter participation, especially for our returning citizens who served their time. So why the change? If Florida was the model for the rest of the nation to follow, why all the obstacles that disproportionately disenfranchise people of color? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because in 2020, Florida Democrats cast 680,000 more vote-by-mail ballots than Florida Republicans. That's why. So like Senator Warnock said earlier today, some people don't want some people to vote. And what happened to us in Florida is just one example of why we need the Senate to pass the For the People Act. State legislatures like Florida were complicit in the big lie. They put up deliberate barriers to make it harder for our people to vote. Floridians, just like Americans, all Americans, need national standards. We need a federal standard, and we need elections infrastructure, y'all. We need elections infrastructure so that we can ensure that everyone can safely and freely cast their ballots. We call on the U.S. Senate to pass the For the People Act before the August recess, and we call on President Biden to use his power and influence to get this done. Pick a side. Voting rights or a filibuster? Please save our democracy and our right to vote. Recess can wait.
Democracy can.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative B. Wynn, and I represent Georgia House District 89. Georgia is the state that delivered a win for President Biden. Georgia is the state that delivered 2 U.S. Senate seats so we could have a Democratic majority. Now, I'm also the daughter of Vietnamese refugees, and my parents came to this country for the basic fundamental rights that we Americans hold as sacred values. That includes the right to free speech, the right to peaceful assembly, and the right to free and fair elections. But right now, our democracy is under attack, and Georgia has been ground zero for misinformation, for conspiracy theories, and for lies. Georgia Republicans unilaterally, not bipartisan, unilaterally passed one of the most egregious voter suppression bills in our country because Republicans did not like the results of the election. Now, we delivered for Biden. We delivered those 2 U.S. Senate seats, Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff, in spite of voter suppression. We organized because we knew our voting rights are on the chopping block. But let me be clear. We cannot out-organize the subversion of democracy. Let me be clear. We cannot out-organize power-hungry Republicans who are currently trying to steal power away from our local election boards. We cannot out-organize partisan gerrymandering that allows politicians to pick their voters and not the other way around. I want to also be clear on this. It is not the job of black and brown organizers and black and brown voters to carry the weight of saving on our democracy on their shoulders. We sent Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff to the U.S. Senate to give Democrats the majority to get the job done. And not just for Georgians, not just for Democrats, but for all Americans. Our democracy is in peril, and we need federal protection now. The recess can wait. We need to end the filibuster and pass For the People Act. And let's not also forget, we gotta also pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Thank
Thanks so much, everybody. I want to also make sure I'm announcing that tomorrow there is going to be a march starting at the African American History Museum all the way to the White House. We're going to meet there at 9:30 in the morning. We're going to march to the White House because we want to demand that President Biden use the full power of his bully pulpit to overcome the filibuster and pass the For the People Act. And I'm so excited to be working on this with my colleagues from Black Voters Matter and a number of other incredible groups. So I want to make sure everyone shows up there for that as well. There's going to be a press conference at the White House directly after the march. And now I want to invite our wonderful singer, Shakara Rogers, up for another song.
Come on, if y'all know this song, I want y'all to sing it with me. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Well, this little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm singing all in my heart. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Well, all in my heart. Yes, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all in my heart. Yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Gonna let it shine. Oh, yeah. Oh, the Lord said, everywhere I go, yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. Come on and sing it. Everywhere I go, hey, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Gonna let it shine.
Great, let's hear it again for Shakara. All right, we're going to have our next group of speakers and our final group of singers, or speakers rather, coming up next. But before they do, I want to get our energy moving with a chant. I think you guys know this one. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you all. Dave.
All right, we have our last slate of legislators, and we're so happy that you all are here with us. to join me in welcoming Representative London Lamar from Tennessee, Representative A.J. McCampbell from Alabama, Representative David Bowen from Wisconsin, and Senators Sarah McBride and Senator Marie Pinckney from Delaware. Give it up for them.
What's up, D.C.? My name is State Representative London Lamar, and myself and Senator Brenda Gilmore bring greetings all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. I serve as the youngest woman in the Tennessee General Assembly, and for me, I just can't understand that in the year of 2021, when we have a Democratic president and a Democratic-controlled Congress, we are still standing outside the Capitol begging our own allies to do the right thing. Millions of people, millions of black people stood in line to change the leadership of our country, expecting that our president and Congress will be courageous and do the right thing. We live in a country that touts this false equivalency that we are a nation built for all people, but yet we are standing out here today begging Congress to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So when we reflect on what's happening today, what has really changed since 1965? See, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, the home base of the Civil Rights Movement, the city where Dr. King was assassinated. And we have one of the largest populations of African Americans in this country. See, our community has historically and currently been victims of centuries and decades of systemic racism and disenfranchisement by our state government. Our state is run by the Republican Party of obstruction, and they are downright bold about making the election process hard for people like me, minorities, and our urban communities. And most importantly, they are trying to erase our history so our babies won't even know what our ancestors did to fight for our right to vote. So what are they really scared of? I know. They are scared of all of our voices. They are scared of our vote. They are scared of losing power. I've attempted to pass legislation to expand voting rights, but it gets shot down. But instead, let me tell you what the Tennessee people have done. Our Tennessee legislature has passed voter ID laws over a decade ago. Our citizens have to register to vote 30 days before election with little to no information or effort to educate the masses. Over the past decade, Tennessee has went from number 24 in voter participation to the bottom 5% of our nation, particularly in the black community. Our state is living proof that the attempt to systemically disenfranchise voters and implement voter suppression laws actually works. We cannot depend on states like mine, especially states like mine, to do the right thing. Stop Tennessee and Republicans for not only disenfranchising my vote, but the vote of my communities. Senators must pass and bring dignity and honor to all of those who died fighting for the right to vote. You know, when I think about fighting, that's a very interesting concept. Because as I stand here with the Capitol steps right behind me, I'm reminded of the tragedy that happened on January 6th. I was outraged. America was outraged. White supremacists attacked our nation's capital to disrupt the election process and overthrow the voice of the American people. But what's more outrageous is the fact we have Democratic senators who claim to honor the legacy of late Congressman John Lewis, but can't even pass legislation that embodies his life work. When you can't even pass legislation that would establish a nationwide equitable voting system for all people, the thing that Congressman John Lewis died for, dedicated his life for. We can't continue to act like we care about the American people and support a fair and transparent process when we're still begging people to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I'm demanding that our U.S. senators do the right thing. Congress can wait to go on recess. Our democracy is under attack. I'm expecting better, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is A.J. McCampbell. I'm the state representative in Alabama, District 71. And I tell you, it's good to be here with my colleagues from Texas who have the ability to walk out and say, we aren't coming back until you change something in this state. They've come to the seat where democracy is supposed to be handled. But what do we have? They are telling us they gotta go on a break. Y'all know what? Your recess can wait. But what? Democracy can't. In 1965, John Lewis laid in the streets of Selma, Alabama. This is a depiction. This shirt shows what happened in 1965. He gave blood for the right to vote. People died for the right to vote. They did it in 65. What are we going to do in 21? It's our time to stand up for those that are disenfranchised by the Republicans' shenanigans. It's our time to reach out and touch those people that are the least of those and say, we are going to make sure you have a right that people have given their lives for. So you know what? We've got to pass this Voting Rights Act. We've got to pass this John Lewis Act. We've got to. So we've got to go up here and tell them that the relic of the Jim Crow era, the filibuster, it's got to go. Senator Manchin, it's got to go. Senator Shelby from Alabama, it's got to go. Senator Tuberville from Alabama, A.J. McCampbell says the filibuster got to go. So we are going to be out here in the streets, and if it takes me laying down and being beat, I'm going to stand up for my people and the right that was won. We've had somebody to sing, but I'm from the old civil rights, era. I walked and I picketed with the sign on me. So, but that was one thing about it that we did, and that was sing songs of encouragement. And one that stuck with me was this. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Freedom, everybody.
All right.
Yes. Oh.
Make some noise one more time. That's Alabama right there. Enough is enough. Say enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Say enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Say enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
I said enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
That's that energy that we need right there. I'm State Representative David Bowen from the great state of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin delegation's in the House. We got Rep. Myers. We have Rep. Sinicki. We got Senator Taylor. And we have Election Commissioner Patricia Cantu-Ruiz. Let me remind you all how we got here with the help of this great state of Wisconsin. Rep. Myers is going to be proud of me right here. Hold up.
Okay, tell it.
Number one, it was 1865. That's right. Ezekiel Gillespie tried to register the vote in the state of Wisconsin as a black man. Not 1965. 100 years before that, in 1865. And he was denied that right to register. But he did what smart, oppressed people do. He got a lawyer. He got a lawyer, and then he took his case all the way to the state Supreme Court. State Supreme Court looked at the case and said, you know what? He's right. You know what? Wisconsin voters gave black people the right to vote in a referendum question in 1849 on a question about African American suffrage. 100 years later, it was the civil rights movement where the legendary freedom fighters that we know and love, like the Honorable John Lewis out of Wisconsin, the Honorable Phil Phillips, and many, many everyday people fought and died for the right to vote, and that equated into the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Number three, it was the actions of fabulous 14 fighting senators in Wisconsin in 2010 when they saw labor attacks come forward. Make some noise for Senator Taylor right here. Make some noise for Representative Christine Sinicki right here. They did a 72-hour session, y'all, in the assembly. I don't know if I could do 72 hours. I did 24. But it is now that we get an opportunity to add to that history. It is now we get a chance to stand with superheroes of Texas. We get a chance to stand with superheroes of Georgia. We're going to get more than peaches out of Georgia, y'all. We are going to say as states, enough is enough. 2016, federal court struck down measures after finding proof that Wisconsin Republicans, some of the worst Republicans we got to deal with, they targeted voters of color with surgical precision. It wasn't an accident that people were finding it hard to vote. So they struck those measures down. And for some people, when they can't win elections, they cheat. They change the rules in the middle of the game. So enough is enough, as we have screamed it in Wisconsin for needed police reform. Enough is enough right now, as we have seen the attacks of our people suffering, trying to get their chance to have their voices heard. We need to stop this attack on our democracy. We need to stop these attacks on our citizens. We must do everything in our power to meet this moment right here. We cannot have any regrets in 2022. We cannot have any regrets in 2024 or in 2026. Whatever happens in the future, we have to say we gave it all that we got. We got through to our allies in the Senate to have them listen to the voices of people who are dealing with an opposition when we know, when we go in the State House, when our opposition has control, they do what they want to do. And they don't really have that many apologies about it. It is time to deliver the For the People Act now. It is time to throw out the schedule that you were about to go home and take a load off and get it done now. Because truly enough is enough.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, the first state delegation is closing us out, so let's cheer like they can hear us in there. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah McBride, and I am the new state senator for Delaware's 1st State Senate District. And that's right, we've got the entire state of Delaware here. Let's hear it for Delaware. All right. And I'm here with my colleague, Senator Marie Pinckney, representing blue districts in a blue state, to stand in solidarity with legislators and voters across the country who are facing unceasing attacks on the sacred right at the heart of our democracy, the right to vote. As the nation's first openly transgender state senator, standing with one of the few openly LGBTQ women of color serving in this nation's legislatures, we are mindful that the only way our service is possible is through free and fair elections.
That's right. That's right.
And while the Delaware General Assembly is expanding access to the ballot box, we know that the attacks on voting rights in state capitals and in courts across the country is a national problem. We are all in danger when our democracy is endangered. Not just because, as Dr. King reminds us, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, but also because the lie, the big lie at the heart of voter suppression, the lie at the heart of the January 6th insurrection, that lie risks all of our votes. The For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act will protect Americans, all Americans, by protecting our democracy, whether you live in a red state or a blue state. And the only way to end the new Jim Crow is to end the Jim Crow filibuster. We are here, we are all here because we believe that every vote matters. And the person I have the privilege of introducing understands that very deeply. She announced a campaign against a longtime incumbent of our party, a leader in our state Senate, and she won that seat after hard work, after knocking on every door and calling every voter by less than 300 votes. So please join me in welcoming a star of the Delaware State Senate, my colleague, Senator Marie Pinckney.
Recess can wait.
Our democracy can't.
How y'all doing? We shouldn't be here, y'all.
You're right.
We shouldn't be here. We have the White House. We have the Senate.
Yep.
We have the House.
Everything.
We shouldn't be here.
Right. That's right.
But we're here. Legislators should not be standing and spending the night on the Capitol.
Yep.
Right. We shouldn't be here. But we're here. American people should not be at risk for eviction. But we're here. But I beg to say that we're here because we are winning.
Yep.
You're right.
We are here because Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock won their runoff elections.
Yep.
We are here because President Biden and VP Harris took the White House. And they scared, y'all. They're scared. We are here because Republican legislators would rather oppress people, would rather steal, kill, and destroy than do what people need. They would rather oppress the rights and the freedom of the people who gave them the power to do that than do what they need. So we're here because we show up, because we protect the people who give us the privilege and the right to protect them. We show up. Legislators leave their homes, their constituents, and they come to the Capitol to demand the rights to protect the people, to do the work of the American people. We shouldn't be here, but we're here because we have the potential to win. The 2020 election showed us that. I shouldn't be here. She shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here. But for so many reasons, we are. People are tired. And we're not going to sit back and take it. Just like they never stood back and take it. Black and brown folk, oppressed folk, queer folk, we never step back and take it. So we're here. We shouldn't be here. But we're here. Because recess can wait.
Democracy can't.
The people can.
Democracy can. In 2020, all across this country, we asked people to show up at the polls. We begged them and promised them that if they showed up at the polls, we would give them what they're asking for. We would protect them. We would save lives. We would save lives. And so they showed up. Shout out to Georgia. Georgia showed up. And now it's our turn. Now it's our turn to show up. So President Biden, some of your senators are here. Congress, we're here. We shouldn't be here, y'all, but we're here. Y'all recess can wait. Y'all vacations can wait. That's right. Show